Hi there, my name is Wayne Headland. In this video tutorial, we're going to talk about making changes, updating, or adding images in the Avada WordPress theme. Now, there are a lot of really cool things you can do in the Avada theme in order to really make your website pop, make it attractive and something that your guests are going to want to stay on, right? When they come to your page, one of the goals is to keep your guests on the page, and that's going to happen by having a bunch of professional videos or professional looking videos that are going to help people want to stay on the page. For instance, one of my friends here, Butera the florist, Vince Butera and his family, they have some professional videos for weddings. He is a florist, and so the images that he has on his page just really make this website pop, make it some attractive and meaningful and interesting, and people want to stay on the page. Why? Because they have some great images. So images and the kind of images that we have are super important. If we have substandard images or images that are too small or grainy, then our website's not going to look attractive. It's not going to look professional. So, and of course, it's important to try to find that balance between stock photos that look so stock photo that it's not even funny, and photos that are so casual that maybe they're too casual. So finding that balance. And this video is really not about trying to find the perfect image. It's about using Asana to get those images onto the website. So we're using a demonstration page here, and we're going to dive into the page. Now, if you haven't already watched, there is two other tutorials that I recommend, actually more than two. First of all, I recommend the tutorial on my website that focuses, or on my YouTube channel, that focuses on navigating the Avada WordPress theme. So navigation is hugely important. I recommend you look at that first. There is also a tutorial that talks about making changes to content using the Avada theme, and that's focusing on textual changes. This video is just focusing on images and imagery. Also, there is a video tutorial on my website talking about how to use Pixlr.com to make changes to your images. And so very, very useful tool. I recommend that you get rid of the ads off to the side by just paying a few bucks a year, but very useful tool in order to get images the right size and do other various elements or various changes to images. All right, let's go ahead and dive in to make changes. So I'm going to look at this website right here. We're going to jump into the edit live view here in the Avada theme. And the first thing I'm going to note is sometimes you have images like, well, where in the world is this image? It's literally behind all this other content. Well, let's talk about that in a moment. Let's dive down to something that's a little easier. Right here, I can see these three images. So let's go ahead and collapse our navigator. Let's figure out where they're at. I happen to know they're under courses. Let's go ahead and expand this section. Maybe I'll collapse all of these columns and find the different columns that are related. Of course, I can mouse over the image options right here as well and make changes in that way too. In this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and expand and find the image here and click on the edit button. So I can see the image, and pretty self-explanatory. I can go ahead and remove that image if I want to and search and find. There it is, or I can just pull a different one in there if I want to. The double right there, that's not going to work. So let's dive back in here and grab that image. And it works pretty good. I'm happy. Now, that was set that way, but the fact of the matter is that particular image probably has, you'll notice that they're exactly the same size, 477 by 476, so they're almost exactly square. What would happen if I tried to pick something that's not square, right? So let's go ahead and insert that. Oops, that's not looking too good. So you do have to keep in mind that sometimes it's important, in order to maintain consistency with images, that you're using the same size, especially in scenarios like this. So for this particular situation, I would either have to mess with some settings, like right over here. In this particular one, I have this aspect ratio, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I changed the aspect ratio to 1:1, which means square. And now I'm, kind of back to where it was. Or I need to make sure that my images all have the same the same pixel size. And you'll notice we're not talking about megabytes here. This image is 49 kilobytes. This image right here, one of our, I think our front page images, is 59 kilobytes. This one over here is 30 kilobytes, 477 by 477. It's actually very important that you keep in mind that you do not want megabytes or 500 kilobytes or even things like that, because it's going to really slow down the speed of your website, which is why you want to watch the tutorial I mentioned about how to resize and crop images so that they're the right size, and actually going to really reduce your people being able to navigate to your website and enjoy it when you have huge images. And it also messes up your search engine optimization, which means that Google is not going to rate your website as high if you have images that are not set up properly. That said, let's go ahead and pop this back in here, and let's talk about this image aspect ratio thing for just a moment. Now, if it's set for automatic, what that means is these images have to be the same size. But we also can mess around. For instance, I can mess around with the the pre-built options like 2:1. I can see that kind of changed it. So it cropped things out, and you notice that some of the tree is missing at the top and some of the road is missing at the bottom. And then you'll see this blue dot here. This blue dot. So here's the image that I uploaded, but now it's letting me change the focus point because it's not showing me the whole image. I can say, well, what do I want to focus on? In this particular case, I'll just say right there. Or I can come over here and say 2 to 3, and that's going to make it long. And what do I want to focus on? Do I want to focus, the car coming into the page or the car leaving? And in this particular case, because it's one of 3, usually you want to either center that like that, or I might just have it a little bit like this, so it's kind of causing our eye to move towards the next image. Similar here, let's do 3:1, see what that one looks like. No, I don't like that. Let's go 3:2. Let's do 4:1. Actually, the 3:2 could potentially be an interesting one. I'm not going to stick with it, but that would be one as well. Go ahead and adjust the, that one's just going to be up and down. Right about there looks good. Now I have to update this one, so let me come over here, and I'm going to have to do the same thing, right? So that there's similarity. So I'm going to do 3:2, and again, adjust that up and down. What do I want it to look like? Right there, etc. Now, this image aspect ratio is particularly helpful when you don't have the ability, or you don't want to spend the time trying to pull in images that are, sized correctly every single time. So in this particular case, we'll pull that one in and see what happens. So there it is. You see that's the aspect ratio right there. Okay, so that one right there was already sized similar to 3:2, so it didn't allow me to make changes here. Well, it lets me make changes back and forth, so it must be a little wider. But again, this just lets you maintain consistency. That said, I'm going to pull back here to maybe something like that. These image ratios, I don't need them to be that way, so I'm going to go ahead and push them back to automatic for each of them. And let's talk about some other elements related to making changes. So as we scroll down, don't worry about lazy loading, and usually you don't want to do image lightbox. The only reason you would do image lightbox is if the image was actually something you wanted to showcase. For instance, that wedding website, we use a lot of light boxes there because people want to be able to look at that image really big. In this particular case, it's not going to help me, but if I click the image light box and click save and go back to the page right here, look at the page, look at the front end of the page, what it's going to do is open up that image in a light box, right? It's going to open it up kind of bigger for me to be able to look at it, and I can share it and do all kinds of fun things, right? That's what the light box is. I'm going to click no there. Alt text is something that you can consider if you're trying to meet some web industry standards. It can kind of help as well. If you want something to happen when someone clicks on that image, like if you want to take them to another page on your website or to another page, you go ahead and put that link right there. Let's jump over to the design issues and just talk about design. So there's a bunch of things that you can play around with here and experiment with the design. I'll just kind of jump down here and note, I really like to set the hover type. It just kind of adds a nice little pop. You see it kind of hovers up there. So I like to add a little bit something just to make it a little more interesting. We've got it set for zoom in. We can have it set for zoom out, or we can set for lift up. Lift up is going to, in fact, let's just do lift up and save that one, see the difference between lift up. So here is our zoom in right here, but then our lift up, instead of zooming it actually lifts the whole page up on the screen. So just another option there. All right, we've got all the margin issues. We've got border if we wanted to add some border. The border radius sometimes for images can be meaningful. So in this particular case, I can set the entire border radius for 8 or 12. So the border is just going to take away those hard edges right there where it's like a square. You see it kind of rounded them, right? So if I take this one here and pop over here to border radius, and I'll just set that for 12, then it makes that a little harder. Of course, I want to make sure I'm showing consistency and doing that for every single one if that is something that's important to me. All right. So those are some basics. There's a lot of other settings in here you can toy around with, like the masking lets you kind of do some weird masking if you wanted to mess around with masking. I'd be careful with masking because sometimes we kind of get a little bit too creative, but it actually can end up making things look a little strange if you don't have a graphic design kind of mentality. So I usually try to stick with what the theme has already given us so that I can make sure it's looking good. All right, so that's the basics on images. However, what you'll notice, as I mentioned before, is sometimes, and let's just go back out of here, leave, close this, and then jump back in. Sometimes there are images that we have to edit, and they're not as easy to get to. For instance, this background image right here is like, how in the world do we get this background image? So let's close our navigator. We're going to find the section first. When I mouse over this first hero, it highlights. So when I open it up, I'll notice there's no image in here. And of course, if there was an image, like if I were to add an image right now, I can add an image and give that, some kind of, right there. That's obviously not what we're looking for. The image is inside the section. So that actually didn't help us. It made things worse. So where in the world is that image? So when you think of the elements, remember when I talked about navigation, you've got sections, you've got columns, and then you actually have elements inside the column. So what we're going to do in this particular case is that's my column. So I know the image isn't inside there. So when I click on the section, I see it's the section. So I know it's actually somehow connected to the section. So I'm going to click on the pencil icon to open the edit view. Say, now where is it in here? You can scroll around if you get lost, but I happen to know that it's right here under background. So we've got the design element. We can see all the different design elements for the entire section. You can see we kind of got these blue sections that are showing me like the padding, to try, like if I get rid of that padding and make it 100, whoops, I don't want to do that. If I make that padding 5%, it makes it too small. That's why the 19 is just kind of like the most ideal percentage. But again, that's not the image. I happen to know it's under background. And background options, when I look at this, I'm like, well, where, I don't see any images. And that's because I have more tabs right here. So I have to like find the tab that's associated with the image. And there it is right there. There's the tab. And so now I can see that image. I can remove the image. And of course, now it's gone, right? And then I didn't want to remove it. Let's go ahead and put it back. So let's find that image somewhere in my list. It looks like it was that one. And I see it's 121 kilobytes, small, nice, but even though it's really big, so that works. And then, is there anything else in here, other settings I want to think about? We have something called parallax effects. Sometimes that can be kind of interesting, where the images doesn't move. But when you start messing around with the parallax effects, it does start making things look a little weird. So I'd be careful, mess around with too many of these settings. So that is where we're getting that background. Now, there's another item with the background that we want to talk about. Let's take this background here. I'm pretty sure, let's just go ahead and jump over to right here. Nope, right here. And same thing is happening here. This one right here, oops, start learning. I know it's not part of column 2 to 3, so it must be part of the entire section. Let's open that up and look at the background, and there it is, right? There's the image, and so I can see that that's what's going on with that background. Just for fun, let's just see what happens if we try to do a column. So let's close Start Learning and let's look at courses. And as we go to courses, we have this 2/5 image right here. So we can actually put an image in the background right here if we want to as well. It's not going to look super good. I already have an image, and that image is just that image right up there at the top. It's that new right there. So that just kind of gives us a little a punch there. But I'm going to highlight this 2/5 and click on the pencil icon. We're going to go over to the background, and we're going to find that images tab and just add an image and just see what in the world happens when we add an image. Let's go ahead and add, I don't know, let's add this one right here, okay? So this, whatever that is, insert into post, and you see it, there it went. It had added an image in that box right now. It's looking weird because this image had white on it, and now it doesn't, so that's not really working for us. So let's go ahead and remove that image and put it back to where it was. Okay, so that talked about image. Let's just jump over to another page and look at some other image things that we can do. Let's go back and edit the live and look at some of the images that are showing up on this page and note a few more interesting things that we can do. So I know that this page has a number of, if I look right here, this first section, I see that it's a very similar idea. I come over here and there is the image, this background image. If I remove it, there it was. We'll go ahead and put that back. So I see that image. We see right here in this intro section, we've got this image right here. This is all one image with those different things. So I can come in here and make changes to it if I want to. I don't need to. It's got a transparent background so that it looks nice. And then we've got this dude here that's just kind of, again, he's got a transparent background as well so that he, fades into this other one here, and he's looking good. So no need to make any changes there, but I can see that we can make changes to that there. So again, let's take this column right here and mess around with it. So this mission statement, let's pop in here an image. We're going to put it in the background behind all of this, and let's see what happens with this. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pick this one right here. I'll pick that one. All right, insert into post, and there it is. And you're like, whoa, that doesn't really look super good. I just want to highlight a couple of things that you can do with this image, though. First of all, we can come in here and see some different, background position. So, for instance, it says left top. I could say left center. That this image isn't going to really show a whole. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, so it's got left and right, or I can center it, right? So center might be a good one. So I can center that car there if I wanted to. But you're like, well, I can't even see the text. So now I'm even going to have to come in and change the color of the text. Or I can come in here and mess around. I'm still in the background section. I can mess around with what's called the gradient. Now the gradient is a little bit an advanced thing, but sometimes it's important to know that you can use it. The gradient's actually going to put a color over top the image. So that image is going to disappear. So again, we're in background type right here, this third tab. The third tab inside the background is the image, but the second tab is showing the gradient. Let's go ahead and put in some colors. Let's put in, I don't know, let's put in white, right? Okay, that white, the whole image just disappeared on me. I'm going to go ahead and put it white right here as well. And you're like, well, how did that help? Well, now I can actually select this image and I can add what's called transparency. You see this? So this transparency is showing transparency at the top. And then I can come over here and do transparency at the bottom because it's a gradient. It's showing a top and a bottom. So in this particular scenario, I might actually have this transparency pop in here like something like this. I'm not going to do this. It's not my favorite because of the borders and various things. But now I can at least see some of the text a little bit better. I might change that text to be darker or something like that. Pop it over here and maybe change that to a darker text. And now it's going to pop a little bit better. Now, I don't like how the image is going all the way to the edges. So if I actually wanted that in my background, I probably would change the margins so that this popped out a little bit more and different things like that. I wouldn't do it by using space. I would use the margin feature. But again, in this situation, don't even like this because it doesn't make sense. Just showing you that in some scenarios, that is what we need to do. All right, so let me jump back to the start and let's scroll down a little bit more. I see this guy right here. Let's see what's happening. He's part of our team, and I see he's inside the nested column. So again, super important for me to figure that out. So there it is right there. There's the image. I can update it similar to what we've already done. But again, sometimes what happens is that nested image isn't inside the nested column. It's actually right as part of the column. So let's look at our column. We have two columns, one column right here and one column over here. So sometimes you might see this scenario. So I'm going to actually remove this image right here by hitting the delete key. Let's go over to the nested column and go into the edit settings, and let's add him back in. Okay, so background image right here, and let's find that dude. Let's see here. There he is, right? There he is. Insert into post, and like, oh, that didn't do anything. Why is he showing up all weird at the top? And that's because the column settings are need to be expanded. That's an advanced feature. But there he is. He popped in, but he's in there in a totally different way. He's in there using the column. He's kind of hiding inside this column instead of these other ones that show that it's an image. So in this particular case, it works, but it's a little bit confusing if I want to make changes, right? So that's why in this, and also you notice that the margins are a little bit different. So now we have to kind of mess around with the margins, etc. So, but depending on how your website is built, if you're trying to find that image and it's not showing the image option, that would be why, right? Because it's kind of hiding somewhere inside there. So we want to keep in mind that this is why I'm doing this tutorial, because finding images and updating them can be a little challenge. Here's another one. There's an image in the background. See a car, you can barely see it. Let's see what's going on with this one. And they think this is our promise right here. So let's pop over here, and we know that that's actually part of the entire section. And there it is. There's that image. Now that image is already got a background, which is, again, probably professionally a little bit easier and better to actually create an overlay on the background before you actually upload it. But if you don't, again, you can use this gradient start and end. Okay, so again, let's just kind of play around with that. Let's add another image. We'll add this one right here. And again, poof, overwhelming. But now we can go ahead and just really reproduce a similar look feel of what was already there by messing around with this gradient, right? So I'm going to take that gradient and take this gradient, and I can make it look the way that I want to. So it still looks good, but I've got this cool background. And incidentally, we also can do some interesting things, like if I wanted that gradient to be green, but I want it to be semi-transparent, I can do that as well. In this particular case, right, go right there. This gradient, I probably would have it be like that. I still can't see that text. So now you can start messing around with some of the options related to the gradient. So like I can take this right here and I can adjust this one over here, because this bottom section, I don't need it to be gradient, to be honest with you. So I might actually remove some of the gradient from that and just have it be gradient near the top. You see it kind of gradients out. And then we also can even change the angle of the gradient. So I can, have a gradient from the bottom, top, side. Again, some really interesting things. We can do radial, which is I don't usually use, but these are some different things that we can do. And again, with this one here at the top, if I wanted to, I might even make that white. Or I can come in here and create a unique color. Like if I want to do a gray or something like that, I can do that as well, right? So that's how we're going to mess around with that. This one's got another image behind it, and even this one's got an image behind it with it looks like a gradient. All right, so I think that covers the bulk of what we do when we're trying to update images on the Avada theme. Hopefully you found this meaningful and helpful to allow you to be able to keep your website looking professional. If you have any questions or get stuck, or if you would like me to help you rebuild or build a website for you, of course, don't hesitate to reach out to me at tlsites.com. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great, great day.